system on fire. Military science fiction podcast. Untold stories every Wednesday. Military science fiction podcast. Discussion, interviews, reviews, and rants. Military science fiction podcast.
Well, hello. Welcome to the show. Today we are highlighting that hat that is right up in Jeff's screen there.
I'm
And
the odd man out.
I know Josh is the odd man out, unfortunately. And we want to shout out to friend of the show, Brent Gasky, who also has, believe it or not, a hat business making some really nice hats. And sometimes when people say, like, I have a screen printing business, like, yeah, okay, cool, you screen print things. Brent's like, yeah, I make hats. And then he rolls out with these, which were just like, had all the tags and stickers. And this is a leather patch. Um,
This is a high quality hat.
it's a high quality
A
hat.
high quality hat. This is not like a hat you'd buy for $5 at
High
Walmart.
quality H2O.
I think the only thing, like, we're talking about the hats now, we may have to talk about them again because I reached out to Brent and I think I just didn't give him enough time. So I don't have the website for folks to go order hats from him. And I think these are kind of a one-off,
We'll
early.
probably have it by the time this
Yeah,
goes.
yeah, we'll definitely get the link in the show notes. I just can't say what it is right now. The name of the business is Fireforge. And Brent, you got to get on your Google Foo because I wasn't finding it with my lackluster search.
We need to do
abilities.
a morale patch.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. So yeah, we got these hats. Brent brought them to us. He traveled by Jeep, which is amazing that he made it from Oregon to Utah. And I think we can all bag on Jeep owners. That's a pretty like safe target for anybody. Um, but he brought the hats to us at Ryder's Cantina, which was in Salt Lake City this last weekend. And unfortunately, Josh was not able to make it. Hopefully,
Nor did he get a
he can
hat.
come next time. I know
Wah, wah,
Well, I would
wah.
like to point out Brent did say he has a hat for you, Josh.
he does. Yes, we just have to get it to you.
Cool.
He just requires you to give him your address, the name of your firstborn child, your mother's maiden name, and a blood
Social security
sample.
number,
And the first car you owned.
Ooh, Chrysler the Baron.
street you grew up on, your favorite pet.
Yeah.
What else? Favorite ex-wife, that kind of thing.
Hey,
Josh is out.
are you guys sending it or is he? Because I can just send him my address on Discord.
He's
If you-
sending it.
He's sending it.
I'll send it to him.
Yeah, he seemed like a solid dude.
I met him before. I met him in Vegas a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about Brent is that he was in emergency management, like I was, and so I think he's just in a city like just north of mine, and so it's really interesting. We never met previously, but we have a lot of stuff in common in that realm. So it's kind of fun talking to him about that, the non-science fiction stuff. But anyway, we wanted to talk about the Writers' Cantina, which is in Salt Lake City. This is its third year, and maybe, Rick and Jeff, can you help me? Because I think, I think it's aimed at writers, but there also seem to be some content for fans as well. Like, where do you think the focus of
Oh,
this-
it's 100% aimed at writers.
Okay.
It is a writers conference.
Hence the name.
Anybody who shows up who's not a writer, they're just showing up because it's local and they wanted to meet some writers that they know, or maybe they're interested in writing. I know I did in one of my panels that I was on. I did 3 panels. I think Rick did 3. I asked everybody in the room, like, who here is a writer, and like everybody raised their hand. Not everybody had published a book because I drilled it down, but not everybody had published a book, but everybody there was a writer or wanted to be a writer, I should say.
Yeah, that makes sense. The thing I was thinking about is just there aren't many events like this. Maybe on the West Coast, like you get into, Seattle, Portland, things like that. But when it comes to Idaho, Utah, like there's superstars, and that feels like that's about it. So this has the opportunity, I think, to really fill a niche, um,
Well, it's the niche
that
that,
region.
what's funny is I was talking to somebody there and he was like, man, I wish there was more stuff about the business of writing here. I'm like, well, that was 20 books, that was like 100% the business of writing, to the point where we were always talking about, man, I wish there was more stuff about writing craft and being a writer at 20 books.
Yeah.
But now that 20 books is gone the way of the dodo, and I don't know the how long Author Nation will be available for people, which is the conference that replaced 20 books. There really isn't a con for writers that is big enough that you can go there and get a bunch of different really good opinions on like how things are done. I thought Writers Cantina does a really good job. Obviously, I don't want to say we're huge, but we're big. I know I'm big.
Huge.
Physically
Who's big?
big.
I mean,
Yeah.
huge tracts of land.
Big in
No,
our niche.
Gee.
Oh, I love that reference.
uh, we've got between me and Rick, and we sold a lot of books, and then of course Larry Correa was there, Steve Diamond was there, and
DJ Butler was there.
yeah, DJ was there, which I have a really funny story about. So I mean, like there was enough people there with the writer savvy to give the what for, not a ton of business savvy, which audience, if you don't know, writers don't always have a lot of business savvy.
No.
Well, DJ Butler has been in the business for a long time.
He is, yeah. And when it comes to Trad Pub, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a fan though, this actually, if you're in the area, it's not expensive at all. I want to say it's like $30 for the weekend.
Yeah, it was cheap.
And if you want an opportunity to meet, specifically some MILSF authors, this is kind of a good place to rub
Specifically
elbows with them.
us.
It's us in particular, but it's one of those places where I think people kind of let their guards down a little bit. So you can learn about writing, but also hang out with people. There was a cool book exchange as well.
Kind of
I don't know. This is Salt Lake City. I know some of the people were armed at all times.
Oh, everybody there was armed.
Why does
I don't want to
nobody
say I
fit
was
right?
armed, but
What are these weird bumps in people's shirts? Nobody tucks their shirt in. Actually, there
Probably
were a lot of
diabetes
tucked in
bumps.
T-shirts at this con. I'll tell you that. Uh,
well, what's funny thing is I mean, obviously Rick and I and Larry did the Larry Correa's shooting class back in May, which was a blast. And there were like 3 people there that were in that class that were also there, like Mike Haskell and a few others, and it was a lot of fun to see them again.
Ethan, I can't remember his last name, was there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Ethan. I suck at last names.
I suck at names in general, so I apologize to the people who were there that I should have known your names and I didn't. I'm really sorry.
yeah, and this was the kind of con, like if folks know of other sort of regional events like this, I would love to hear more of them because I think, like Jeff was just saying, there was an event we used to go to that was in Vegas called 20 Books. The nice thing about that was Vegas. I really don't like Vegas, but it's easy to get to, so you don't have to go participate in Vegas, but it's a good place for
Oh,
things like that.
but
But
the food is so good, James.
Food is so
that's debatable.
expensive.
Yeah, we had a really nice meal, I will say that, there in Salt Lake City. But I would love to hear about more events like this because I personally would like to go to more regional, like, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, or it's pretty easy to get, I even, Midwest. It's where I seem to run into plane trouble is trying to go anywhere on the East Coast, but I can get to the Midwest with minimal problems.
I know that
So,
there's like a writing, I don't know, it's writing or more of a like media convention that's in Casper coming up soon.
interesting.
I
Okay.
don't know how big that is, but and this weekend I think is for those of you on the East Coast, there's the Tampa Bay Comic-Con this coming weekend.
I went to the first 20 books, which was I think all you guys were there too. Actually, that's
Yeah.
where I first met Rick, and I think that's where I first met James.
We met at 20 bucks the first time too, but I was there I think the second or third time it showed up. I missed the first one.
Oh,
You guys
okay.
hosted a swanky dinner, or it
We
was kind of
did.
a
We
meet and
had
greet, I guess.
that was the first keystroke. Didn't you get a hat, James?
I did get a hat. I have my hat.
That was our first little fan. I was actually really surprised at how many people turned up. But anyway, I really enjoyed that first 20 books, just because of how the size. Like it was big enough that you got to see a lot of people, but not super big like it became. And I actually, despite Samstown being kind of secondhand
Yankee?
Vegas. I liked it.
I preferred Sam's Town
Yeah, me
to
too.
the Horseshoe.
Yeah,
Because I don't particularly care for walking the strip, even though the food's really good. And I like the fact that we were kind of insulated in there from the rest of Vegas.
for sure.
Sam's Town, Sam's Town, if folks aren't aware, is this off the strip, which in Vegas, if you're not on the strip, you're just outside of the bubble of Vegas. But this kind of old school, like probably built in the 70s. It had event rooms and whatnot, but the bar was super interesting. Like, imagine going into a Bass Pro and the animatronic, like waterfall, janky animals barking at each other and there's a bar right there. And then every, what was it, like 30 minutes or something, there'd be an
3 hours.
animatronic display that would come up with this sort of warbled music. And so, but there was, I don't know, the
And
drinks were
the
cheap.
eagle
It
went
was,
caw
yeah,
really
It
loud.
was like the Captain Planet show introduction or something. It was
yeah.
every
100%.
3 hours.
So
Yeah.
lots of character. I'll say that. And I prefer that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It did kind of smell like cigarette smoke, which that's just Vegas. You got to deal with that. But
right.
I
As
did
opposed to
like
going on the strip where it all smells like marijuana smoke.
right.
I did
100%.
like that there were three places that everybody hung out at Sam's Town.
Hmm.
And you could make the rounds at those three places and find whoever you wanted to find, as opposed to Horseshoe or Bally's, whatever it's called now,
Called Horseshoe
where
now.
once the conference was over, once the conference ended, there was like 900 bars, and other casinos, and you basically just had to walk from one leg of the place, from the pizza place to the other end of Bally's and back, trying to find somebody.
That's why I like that central bar, because not only was everybody there, but like I could send Rick a message like, "Hey, we're going to the bar," and I didn't have to specify where it was. But also, like, it's because everybody was there, and it was just it was a smaller space. You could say hi to many people, and you didn't have to make it a big thing to try to organize where you were at. You could just say,
Yeah.
"Oh, hey, Rick," and then walk across the thing and say, "Hey, James," or whatever. But
Yeah.
I wish I would have. Writers Cantina looked like it was a fun deal. I wish I would have been able to go. I need to, maybe next year I'll see if I can budget in one of those, like a
You and
craft.
Scott should carpool.
Yeah, that actually might not be a bad
Because he
deal.
wants to go. I mean,
Yeah,
I think if he didn't have to go by himself, it'd probably be more of an attraction for him.
Mhm.
yeah, that actually might not be a bad deal. I mean, the only con I got coming up is Dragon Con. I just bought my tickets for that, or my plane ticket for that, but that is a huge fan con. It's not
Right.
really a craft con, and I get to meet writers that are there, but I would like to have a smaller.
What's the con that you guys went to in Oklahoma City? Is that one that would you say that was fans or was that for writers?
No, that was definitely writers, and that's more of it was a Oklahoma Writer Federation Incorporated. And that is a smaller con. I mean, maybe a couple hundred people.
If you're
And
not from Oklahoma, you have to be from Kansas, I think. They won't let people from Texas in.
It's not best
uh,
to stop in Oklahoma. I do know that. Like, probably fly in, don't drive across Oklahoma
yeah, I mean,
without a safety
it was
case.
a nice con. Scott and I did a couple of presentations around podcasting. But it's definitely geared, at least the two times that we went, it's definitely geared to more traditional author space. I mean, they've got agent pitch sessions and editor pitch sessions and that kind of thing. And they're all very um uh mainstream genre, but like romance and mystery and thriller. There's not a lot of science fiction and fantasy panels, and definitely not a lot of indie panels in that space. Um, but I mean, it was fine for what it is.
Mhm.
There's certainly, I mean, it sounds like there were more people there than there was at Writers Cantina, because there maybe was 100 people at Writers Cantina.
Yeah.
The vast majority of them science fiction and fantasy, I think. I met a couple of thriller authors. There's always the authors who are like, "Oh, I write in every genre," which, spoiler alert, when someone says that, they're not really successful at all.
Yeah.
I was trying last night to think of authors
Unless
I
they're
knew,
James Patterson.
but he doesn't write. I
Well,
mean,
that's true.
I was trying to think of authors that I knew in the indie sphere who wrote
I was going
in
to say there have been
multiple
writers in
genres.
I mean, one of my favorite science fiction writers, Jack Vance, like he wrote his Elliot Queen for years, but he's not a good example because he used a pen name to write mystery, and then
Daniel Aronson, I think, is the only one that I can think of that has written in multiple genres off the top of my head, like science fiction and
yeah,
fantasy. I mean, Sanderson does it, but it's not
Again,
really,
not a
right.
yeah,
that's like the extreme outlier.
for sure.
Writing in multiple genres, writing whatever whim takes you is not a way to be successful in this business.
Usually, when people can do that, it's after they have gotten hugely successful and built up a following that will read them no matter what their name is on.
Right.
That's the only way you get away with that.
Yeah. But what I mean is the people who write like science fiction under one name, and fantasy under another name, and romance and this and that, and they're not successful in any of them. And you see that a lot. There was a lady at the con that we were at just at Writers Cantina was talking about her 17 different pen names. And, I looked them up. She's got a couple books that have a few hundred reviews, but the 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 straighter path to success is sticking with one or two genres at most that are closely related.
I do have a question about Writer's Cantina since I wasn't there, but the other one that I thought of was Lindsay Baroker.
Mhm.
She did write in multiple genres. I don't know where she built her fan base in
Fantasy
terms
romance.
of okay, but I know she wrote science fiction and things too, and they
She
were
wrote kind of science fiction
She wrote a space
romance.
opera. She wrote
okay,
a space opera. I liked her space opera.
yeah,
I even wrote a short story in her space opera universe. It did not do as well as her dragon romantasy. She
for sure.
Dragons in there.
kind of was romantasy before it was really a thing,
It
and
was Romantasy before Romantasy was cool.
yeah, her romantasy books are huge.
I we talk about this a lot. I don't want to completely discourage people. I think when you're, obviously write what you enjoy. You just have to realize sometimes. Well, here's the thing. Like, I think if you enjoy writing, like if you want this to be a business, that's something different than writing because you enjoy it. Or, you know, this is a time where you could put things of it, make things available without the intention for them to make money, and that's okay. But you just have to realize when if you're going to try and make a business of this, you probably have like everybody's saying, at most two aligned genres that you could write in. And once you do that, you're probably going to be a little pigeonholed, unless you completely do something different.
Well, and
Which
that's a
is
And
why
it's
you should,
difficult,
sorry,
no,
which is
go
why
ahead.
you should be writing something you love in the
right?
first place, and not like, well, I feel like writing an urban fantasy this time, and oh, next time I feel like writing a mystery, and the time of that I feel like writing children's books. No, stop.
I mean,
If
it's kind of
you're
like, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think if you're looking to find your thing, writing in multiple genres is fine when you're beginning a writer, when you're beginning your journey as a writer, and you're like, I think I want to write stories. Um, when you're trying to figure that out, maybe you think you like thrillers, but then you try to write a science fiction book and you like that better, and so then you work on that. Um, but also, I think too, when you're just starting out, if you're thinking about is whether or not the book is going to be successful or not, that's really going to hamper the creative fun of actually being a writer. And the the thing is, and I've said it before, but the thing is about writing is and making money at it is there's way more avenues to make money than writing books, and they're most of the time way more profitable and easier to do than writing a book. And most people just want to write because they want to write. And so when you're starting out, like you're not at a level where we're at, even though we're not like big names, household names or anything. Um, if you're just starting out, just write whatever you want. I mean, when I wrote, I've got pages and pages of horror and sci-fi and thriller and all of that that'll never see the light of day. But um, I do agree with finding one niche that you're good at least for the foreseeable future. Once you kind of make it into selling books, you really need to stick to that because you're going to have to start almost all over if you decide to write in a different genre. I mean, we've all seen it with different series that we've written, but a lot of people don't read. People that read Drop Trooper might not necessarily read Wholesale Slaughter. right. I mean, yes, they're kind of in the same universe, and maybe it's a bad example, but better example is Jeff's superhero series.
Yeah.
People that read Grimm's War aren't necessarily going to read his superhero stuff, and vice versa. So even if you build a fan base in one genre, they're not going to necessarily follow you over. You know,
Although I would
and
say that the stuff you've written that will never see the light of day, just put it out under a pen name because you never know, one of those might just hit big and
right,
you could become a millionaire overnight.
And I'll say that, we talk about writing like it's a special kind of business, but it's really just branding. I mean, if you think about, you know, I want Coke and that's what I want. I don't like it when Coke comes up with a different kind of Coke. Um, and unfortunately that really plays into this same sort of thing. It's a business where you would hope people would like your Coke. And when you roll out with new Coke, they'll want that too, but no, they want old Coke. So they'll take the Coke with ice, but that's about it.
I
Well,
do
it's
like
funny
vanilla Coke.
But
with
crack cocaine
Arsenal.
was so successful.
With Arsenal, I wrote like 8 books in Arsenal. I wrote 9 total, but I was no 6 books in Arsenal, and I started a companion series called Wraith, which was about a different superhero, same universe, and they ended up crossing over, which I love doing. But about half my readers who read Arsenal didn't even know Wraith existed.
Mm.
And about half people who read Wraith didn't even know Arsenal existed. So even in the same genre, um, you know, it doesn't always cross over. So you've got to be very careful about
Yeah.
how you plan your career. You can't just do it haphazardly.
Well, and even the big name authors one of them comes to mind is like George R. R. Martin. George R. R. Martin was a science fiction writer before he wrote Game of Thrones, and he wrote many, many science fiction novels and short stories and novellas. Um, uh, but I've never read any of his sci-fi, and I don't really want to. You know what I mean?
I know.
But going to my question about that cantina, one of the things that I liked about the original 20 books was that there was a lot of craft-centric panels there that actually provided, usable information for me. And I don't typically find panels typically interesting unless they're focused on something that I'm trying to learn. And so for 20 books, most of them were all business based, and I really didn't have any care to attend those panels.
There was panels like how to write compelling characters,
Hmm.
how to outline, um, which I should have been on.
Ha!
There was
Technically, we should have been on all of them.
Were they good though? Did they provide
I-
good
the one
information?
I didn't get to go to either of those because I had other panels,
Ah.
I found a lot more
they had a
value,
lot of craft based panels.
yeah, in the networking that happened. But
Hmm.
I don't know that I was the audience for a lot of those panels, and that's fine. It really felt aimed at, very new people that just have never done this and are not sure where to go or what to do. And so that's something I would definitely love to see more. Uh, I want to be kind of, I would like to see more of that, more growth there as far as the panels and organization of the panels and things like that. But it's a new convention. So the only way to get more of that is to keep doing it, so I
There were
think,
also panels like, I don't know if it was called pitching, but basically it was about pitching to agents or publishers. And there was one I was in that was why I chose to indie publish
right.
and productivity, things like that. There was it was all over the place, mostly on the mechanics or the craft of writing. Very few on the business end of it.
One of the things that I struggle with, and maybe James, this is what you're talking about too, is um, a lot, the majority of writer conferences are typically focused at the beginning writer and trying to learn the basics. And so trying to find a panel that um, provides meaningful information to a writer that's been doing it for 10 years, that's difficult.
Well, Nink is basically for professionals, right?
What's that?
Uh,
Nink,
uh,
uh,
novel
Novelist Incorporated.
Novels Incorporated. Yeah.
Ah,
I don't know what's
Writers
going on with
training.
that organization. Like, weren't they in flux in some way? I thought.
I don't know. I've never been to it, even though it was in St. Pete when I lived in Florida.
Yeah.
I never wound up getting to it.
My understanding was it was the East Coast 20 books because all the same presenters, all the same.
Yeah, but it wasn't for newbies because
They
you had to
require like
you had
sales
to show
verification.
like a certain amount of money you had made, I believe, to join it.
I do know the 3 panels I had. One was the ethical use of AI in writing.
Mm.
Was
That would have been interesting to be on.
it was actually I have a funny story from it. The best, not a name drop I have ever heard anybody do ever. I was sitting next to a guy, super well dressed, had a military career that would make almost anybody who ever wanted to be in the military jealous.
Yeah, I know you're
Yeah.
talking about.
And he was talking about his writing career so far, and he was talking about his mom, who is has a PhD in English literature, and so her writing credentials are really great, and she helped her brother, you know, break into the business with by editing his work, and her brother was his uncle, and he was pretty famous. And I looked down at the name of the guy, and his name was Benjamin Card, and
And
I'm like,
it's Utah.
and it's Utah. So his uncle was Orson Scott Card.
Oh,
And yeah,
wow.
that was like, oh, and the whole room was like,
Yeah,
oh,
but the poor guy, like he was trying to do his best to sort of establish his own,
yeah,
personality there.
He was
a
dressed
nice guy.
like a insurance salesman to
I know. How do you feel about that? Because I saw a couple people that were,
Thought he was really well dressed.
well,
Yeah.
is that a barrier or is that like, I don't know.
This is his personality. He wore a 3-piece suit. I
He
mean,
If
he
did,
had
if
a
his
yeah.
pocket
if his
watch.
suit had been black, he could have stepped right out of the streets of Tombstone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that to me that was pretty cool. I did get the feeling though that listen, my opinion on AI is fairly well known. If it ends up in your writing, you've done it, you're not a writer. And I really got the feeling that was a minority opinion there.
Oh,
Uh,
I was in a panel where it was the future of science fiction and fantasy, and yeah, we got into it a little bit about the role of AI in writing, and you know I gave my opinion that yes, AI. Somebody asked a question about people churning out books with AI, and I'm like, yes, it's going to make things more difficult for people breaking into writing, just because it's going to muddy the water with all kinds of crap. But I mean, I was saying it's not like any of these books are going to have staying power, because even though they may get to the point where they are technically and mechanically sound, they have no imagination. I told them I've put like ideas into Chat GPT or places like that and said, write this scene. Just I want to see what it looks like. If I like if there's a scene I'm not sure if I'm going to write, I'll just say write this scene, and that way I know if it'll fit in the book, and then I can go back and write it. But what it puts out, it's horrible. It's like a teenager trying to write science fiction for the first time, basically. And one of the other panelists is like says, "Oh yeah, I use AI to write books," and I'm like, "Well, how do you use it?"
Right.
And and I'm like, because I will sometimes take a synopsis or the ideas that I want to put in a book, and I'll ask Chat GPT or whatever, put this in a 3 act structure, you know, but I don't even usually use what it does. I have to really adjust it. Um, and he was like saying, "Well, what I do is I give it this and this and this, and I have it write something, and then I'll say, no, I want you to write this with a different idea, and then a third idea, and then I'll like synthesize those and then rewrite everything." Well, I'm like, that's not really letting it write for you, and honestly, for me, that's taking the place of somebody who writes multiple drafts.
For sure.
You're writing multiple drafts. I said, for me, I don't write multiple drafts, so that would take me more time than what I do. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, and I think too that, like you said, it's how you're using it. Are you just you're asking ChatGPT, give me a story about something, and it gives you a story, and then you copy and paste that. Maybe you edit a little bit, you make a book, and then you publish it. That is something that I don't agree with. But like using it the way you're using it, the way I use it is, and I have the one of the paid versions of ChatGPT. I can't remember what level it is, but it allows you to save uh, ChatGPT. I don't know if you call it an instance or a theme in that setting. And so I punched in all of weaponized like key things, like what I want in weaponized, where it is, the future, all this tech. And then every question that I ask it in that instance of my ChatGPT, it answers it in the context of the weaponized information that I've put in the system. And so a lot of times what I'll do is, I use it as a generator for names, for technology, for that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But I also and I don't know if you guys come across this, but I'll be um, writing a paragraph or a sentence, and I have an idea for a concept that I'm trying to get on the page, and I have the beginning part of whatever this is, but I can't think of the ending part. So what I'll do is I'll copy and paste the beginning part into ChatGPT and say, give me options for the how do I finish this sentence, and it'll spit out a whole bunch of options. And normally what I do is I just kind of cherry pick different things. I'm like, that'll work. But I don't just copy and paste it in there. I just use that as kind of a base sounding board for what I'm trying to do, and then I'll create my own thing. And
Like a
I'm
writing
totally,
part.
yeah, it's almost like a writing partner, and I'm
Yeah, I was
not
gonna say it's like having somebody you can call and say, "Hey, here are the ideas I have. Which do you think is better?"
100%. Yeah, and I think using it that way
Without having to
is,
bother Jeff.
I was
yeah,
gonna say all
right.
the calls that Jeff is missing out on.
Yeah.
He's a casualty of ChatGPT. Like
We need
we
to
have an
call
example.
Jeff Jeff GBT. And but I think that is a fantastic use of AI. It's a for me it's a very advanced idea slash content generator for the stories that I'm trying to tell.
You're right
And
about names, though. It's really helpful with names.
100%, like,
And
and what I
you
like,
can't count on it to just give you the name the first time, but it'll give you a huge list, and you can go through and say, "I'll take the first part of this name and the last part of that name," and that sounds good.
what else I like that it does, at least on my version, is that it will um if I ask it for a like a generic name of something, like some kind of a machine or a product, say, right, like a ration bar, give me a name for a ration bar, and for mine it will categorize its responses, and it'll say this is a more corporate name, this is a more militaristic name, this is a more like everyday name. And then if I like the sound of the military names, but I don't like any of the ones that it gives me, I can just say, give me more of the military version, and it'll spit out more of those. And it's very good at
The
giving,
way the name for the ration bar is the Fruity Odie bar.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I just like that, and some of the stuff that it gives me, I wouldn't have come up with on my own, right? And I used to use Seventh Sanctum, which was a website, just a generator that it was a all the stuff was already punched in, and it was just kind of randomized words that were already punched in there, and so you could click through like planet names and all of that.
Fantasy
But
Name Generator did that too.
yeah,
Still does it, I think.
right. But in this instance, you can say, give me ideas for a planet name, and like it'll give you lists, and like some of them be like Epsilon 3 or Sunrise. And I'm like, oh, give me more like Sunrise. I want more in that kind of theme. I absolutely love that about AI.
Yeah, there are a lot of great uses for it. And I remember telling you guys a couple years ago when the 2.0 version of ChatGPT came out, it actually became iterative and useful.
Yeah,
Like we gotta incorporate this into our workflow because the people who are going to use it the best are authors. Nobody to date, and I won't say never because never's a long time, but not in my lifetime, I think, is some rando gonna be walk up to ChatGPT and like write 100,000 word novel about superheroes and have it spit out something that's useful. I don't think that's gonna happen in our lifetime.
I think our
Now,
friend Rachel Ox said something like you're basically gonna have tiers of content there, and so there'll be like the fanfic where you really just don't care, and it will generate something for you. But then you, as a writer, want to be in the like the mid tier to beyond mid tier of like a human made this, and it's worth your time to look at it. You know,
right.
the way AI was explained to me by somebody who is involved in developing it is that the language learning models are a shell over the iterative part, and the more complex, the more data goes into the shell, the more it feeds back into the program and then back into the shell. And you get to a point where after about 5,000 words, and you can ask Rock and you can ask ChatGPT, like, how many words can you reliably put out before it turns to nonsense? And it's, I think when they first started it was like 500. I think they're up to 5,000 now. But I have found more than a couple of paragraphs and it loses the plot. So, I just don't, somebody there said, like, we're right on the cusp of being able to do what I said I don't think they'll be able to do in our lifetime, which is someone will be able to put in a couple of fill out basically a form about what they want in a story, and AI will be able to write 100,000 word story based on that data, and it will be as good as anything written. And I completely disagree with that. And I didn't want to get into a fight between panelists, especially the dude has
I
some
would.
credentials. Well, it would have derailed it, but the dude has some credentials that I don't have. So
I don't care if they what credentials they have in computing. I don't trust their credentials in writing if they believe that.
And if it can do that, it's probably stolen from something else. And
Yeah,
that's the
100%.
thing.
Well,
Like,
and that's the thing I think a lot of people realize is the AI can't actually create anything. It just takes what's out there and it remixes it into something else. And so the
Did
thing
you
that
guys see the panel or the Senate hearing that Baldacci was on?
mm-mm.
He did a really good. He was just a couple of weeks ago. He was on an AI deal in the
Didn't
Senate,
see that.
and he testified. And his opening statement slash monologue was absolutely just phenomenal. And he said, there. I asked it to give me a David Baldacci book, and it did, but it didn't know how to do that. Just on its own, they had to steal my books and put my books into the system, and then it could give me a David Baldacci book. But it's not the same thing. It doesn't have the nuance of my books. It just takes the elements that I have. So
And
yeah.
it's really basically this what it comes down to is there's just two things here. There's the ethics of it and there's the business of it. Ethically, you're not a writer if you're not writing it. Business wise, you have no copyright on it if you use it. So, and I said this in the panel, you all are going to try to build a career off of writing with AI, and Amazon's going to come along and they're going to make a decision that everybody hates, but it will end that immediately. And YouTube's going to do the same thing. YouTube is just about to, I'm almost positive YouTube's about to change some things on their
I
program.
hope.
It's going to put an end to all the AI
I'm so
slop.
sick of those AI written scripts read by AI voices, and they get you on there with like clickbait, and then you click on it like,
they
oh,
trick
this,
you with search terms. You're trying to find
yeah.
something like replace the air filter in my 2009 Sienna, and then it's all just slop.
Yeah.
As I'm listening to this conversation, trying to think about this from a fan, perspective, like I think there still would be a lot of interest in this con or a con like this to a fan. Like you could hear writers kind of having these debates, and I think that would be
Well,
interesting
I mean, it's a to some extent, maybe not as much now as the first year, but it's kind of a Larry Correa fan con in a lot of ways.
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean the big draw is that Larry's there, and I spent the second half of the second day talking to Larry in the break room, and Larry's so much fun to talk to. So the and we got I had some business to do with Larry, so we got some stuff hammered out. But it is the AI panel was the one that was the most contentious, but the one that was the most fun for me to be on was the how I write exposition panel. Because it was interesting, because one of the things that I was thinking, like, while people were talking was like, do you guys know what exposition is? I almost said that. I'm glad I didn't, but I mean, like, I think they didn't quite.
Why are you so mean, Jeff?
I mean, I don't
You
mean
should
to
have
be.
started out saying, my name is Basil Exposition of British Intelligence.
Well, I ended up being the moderator on it, and I didn't want to be the moderator. I wanted to participate.
Yeah,
So
that is a feeling I noticed with that con. I mean, it's hard to do. They're young. They don't have a lot of people working on it, but they get people who are subject matter experts and they'll make them moderators, not understanding that that's not who you want to be the moderator. You want the moderator
Right.
be somebody who's not as expertise, it just has questions to ask, and the SMEs should be the ones answering the questions.
Right.
Yes.
Well, the way I moderate is I ask a question and then I answer it and then I give it off to somebody else because I'm never going to miss an opportunity to talk, especially about something I love, which is writing, And I feel like I had a pretty great couple of moments in the exposition panel
Did you
where
talk about sex position?
Bah.
Wah, wah, wah. No, Jeff probably didn't do that. He just stops. I just shut it down.
But
I
honestly,
don't even
what's
know
good
what that
about
is, honestly.
a
Never-
good
Oh,
moderator will do what Jeff is saying. Is they ask a question and then either answer it or give an example that they're having in difficulty with whatever subject they're talking about. Like if it's exposition, you bring that up as the topic or the question, and then you say, "Oh, this is the trouble that I have," or "This is how I do it," and then you cap that with how do you do it? Because not only is that allowing the moderator to participate in the panel and not just be a question generator, but it also gives the panelists time to formulate their own response. Um, because a lot of people, uh, when they answer, it takes them a minute, especially if they don't have the
right.
questions in front of them beforehand. And so it takes them a minute to kind of generate. And that I think a lot of moderators uh, don't understand the way that people process the information when you're asking them questions like that, especially for a question like you're talking about. Like if it's a content specific exposition question and they're not prepared for it or they haven't thought about it, then you're going to have to give them a little bit of time to come up with that good
Well,
response.
speaking of AI, on the side, quickly tapped on my phone, Grok, I'm on a panel about exposition. Give me 10 good questions I can ask. And that's where I got my
Nice.
questions from. But what I thought was
Nice.
You
interesting
didn't just
was,
exposit the questions?
yeah, right.
Wah,
What I
wah,
thought
wah.
was interesting was exposition by definition is scene setting and information and basically everything that's not dialogue is exposition. And they all seem to think that exposition and info dumps were the same thing. And someone's like, "Well, what about David Weber?" And I'm like, but David, and I know you guys know how much I love David. So this will come as no surprise when I say David's a master at it. David gives you the information when you want the information, especially in Basilisk Station. Like you get two-thirds through the novel, you have no idea how the FTL works, and then the bad guys are about to escape into FTL, and bam, he teaches you about how the FTL works. It was brilliant. So there was a lot of like, well, what is, one guy was like, I don't do exposition, and that I guess that works for him, and someone else was like, oh, well, I dribble the exposition throughout the story, and I'm like, really? Because like, if it's not dialogue, if you're setting the scene, or so I talked about how I change perspectives and the terms that those are used for, and how I'll do omniscient for the space battles because I like imagining the weapon systems firing and the rounds moving through space and the impact on the enemy ship, and that's all stuff that characters don't see. And my thoughts on how you can change the story with a couple of lines of exposition, you can completely change the feeling of a story. And I gave an example of that, and so I felt like that was like the really best, like the best craft panel probably I'd ever been on because I felt like the audience was like, "Oh my gosh, I did not know you could do that." And so there was a real learning kind of environment there, which was pretty cool. I ended up meeting a couple people from that panel who ended up spending a lot of time talking to me and Rebecca about craft and writing and stuff because apparently I impressed them.
Those are the best panels that I have been either been on or watched as a just a audience member are the ones that really challenge me to do something different or to learn something in craft. And I'm always trying to do things better and find different ways to do them. But typically speaking, you're only going to probably have one or two or three of those moments during a single panel. And I find that to be true with any subject driven thing that's an hour long. I mean, even like our show, you might watch our show and it's enjoyable to watch, but you may only pull one or two good things for
Yeah.
you that you can use personally in your own writing, and that's fine. But I love when that happens.
I do get frustrated when, being on a panel and trying to prepare the best I can, and it's obvious other people have not prepared. That always is a little tough. Or you get a person who is dominating the conversation and the moderator doesn't step in to do that, and then you feel like you have to raise your voice to make them shut up. Um, but
Right.
that's, I don't know. I noticed a little bit of that. Just the, and I think that gets back to just moderator preparation, which I'm sure would get better as people do more of that.
We
Trying to
were
think.
on a panel, Scott and I were on a panel in Vegas, and this comes down to like the subject of the panel. Sometimes the subject is misinterpreted by the panelists. And,
Yeah.
we had a thing on branding, and we thought that it was like book specific branding, but it was not. It ended up being multiple different branding, like clothes, or even just how you're presenting yourself physically as an author. We went into the conversation like, oh yeah, if you're branding, your covers and, how you write, how you're presenting the story, like that that's all part of your brand. And the other panelists went on and it completely threw the conversation because I didn't know how to interact. I didn't know how to continue the conversation on the other end of it. And it was a very interesting time. And I don't think the audience members got it either, because I think the audience members were more on what we were talking about. And they you could all see the story like glassy eyed, like I don't know what the other person is talking
Well, the
about.
same
But
thing happened actually here at Writers Cantina. Like there was a panel called State of the Weird. And so I interpreted
Yeah.
that as weird fiction, which is a thing I do like. I guess I think of weird fiction as like it's not quite horror, but often it's kind of like horror, right? Um, and no, that turned into just an hour of like talking about weird things we've seen, like Sasquatch or the time the wind blew the doors off a hangar. And it was just kind of surreal. I don't know.
Authors are a weird bunch,
Yeah.
and they're not. How to say this nicely?
They're not greatly moored in reality.
Yeah, and and there's a lot of them that are not necessarily the most morally upstanding kind of people. So when you said branding, Josh, I thought you meant,
Oh.
yes,
you know,
cattle branding.
Cattle
because there
brand.
are authors who are in that kind of
Wrong kind
community.
of
I
For
con.
ran
sure.
Wrong
into
kind of
them in
con,
20
right?
books,
Right,
and I'm just
right.
like, let me back slowly out of this room,
Yeah.
people.
Everybody's in leather and chains. I need to go somewhere else. I'm not prepared for this.
Right.
I've left my leather at home.
Right. This,
No,
although somebody did walk into or actually we saw them all walking out, and they're all dressed like cowboys carrying saddles. And I guess it was like a cowboy panel or something, but that was kind of funny. It's like where did these guys come from?
What
but you did.
what we should have a panel, and this could, not to change the subject, but the AI stuff that we've been talking about, we should probably have a panel show about that and talk about, and maybe even show specifically how we use the different things in our writing. I think that might be a little that might be interesting. I can't remember if we've done something like that
We
before.
haven't.
Not
I
really,
think
no.
we've touched on the ethics of AI and writing and how we use it in our workflow. I don't think we've actually done a show on our workflow, so that could
Yeah,
It's
definitely be a lot
something
of fun.
people are interested in.
for sure.
It's kind of hard to write about AI right now
You
because
should get an
it's,
AI to write it for you.
I know. I mean, so often like AI was the snarky AI, basically like having another person writing in someone's head along with them, having a conversation. And now we're in a time where it's becoming pretty obvious that AI is going to be real weird and very different from us if it actually is sentient. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting
I don't know.
conversation to have
I
too.
think there's still a big market for the snarky AI,
Oh,
and
there is. I mean, in
we're
reality, I'm
making a lot of
talking
money
about
at
like
that.
what it will
I
look like.
something I wanted to say in the panel that I never got around to because the time ran out and other people were very talkative was not that I'm talkative at all. Was that
Hmm.
I think the however we decide to use AI or however people pumping out books, whatever, I don't think technology is going to limit AI. I think it's going to be the law that limits AI. I
Mhm.
think the legal landscape is going to change to the point where if you have AI in your writing, in your art, in anything, that the copyright and trademark laws are going to determine whether it gets used or not. Excuse me. And I think that's going to be the big factor. I think the big corporations are going to push it probably too far, and the law is going to come back and be like, No, you can't copyright this, you can't trademark this ever. It's AI, or someone's going to lose something to ChatGPT or Grok or whoever because the court's going to rule that Grok has the rights on it, not you. Something to that effect.
Right.
Law it's
Right.
going to limit it.
Because they'll want their stuff. Okay, well, hey, that would be we will definitely get that on the list, I think, to talk about in the future.
Along with the second part of the logistics.
Yes,
with the
we
second
have
part.
not forgotten, dear
Well, our
viewers.
list
I
is
know.
just going to keep growing and growing on the
I know.
shows we want.
That's all right. That's good. That means we have
Yeah.
things to talk about.
I love it.
As long as we don't run out, we're good. So anyway, hopefully this has helped you make a decision about Writers Cantina, or at least get an idea what it's all about. I think the website is just writerscantina.org, but we'll get it in the notes as well. And it's generally going to be this time every year, summertime. And Salt Lake City was also just fun to visit. There's cool stuff to see there. So, all right. Thank you for hanging out with us. We will see you next time. Yep. Later.